Episode 6, The Body. In this episode, a gardener finds a body in a woman's yard where he is working. Edward Niedermeyer was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed 50-year-old gardener who did things the old-fashioned way. He didn't use gas leaf blowers, he used rakes. He didn't use gas lawnmowers, he used push lawnmowers. He said that it helped to protect the environment and that it didn't add to noise pollution either. Edward also loved the feel of pushing an old-fashioned lawnmower over the grass. He said it was really good exercise and that it helped him to stay in shape all of the 25 years that he was a gardener. His clients seemed to enjoy the sound of the rake and not having loud lawnmowers disrupt their peace. They also loved that there were no gas fumes that the usual lawnmowers and gas blowers created. One day, when Edward was raking Mrs. Edwina Green's front lawn, he noticed that there was a man's brown shoe lying next to one of several large bushes that went almost to the ground. He leaned over to pick it up, not realizing that it was on someone's foot. At first, Edward thought that one of the local homeless men had fallen asleep there. He tapped the man's leg with his hand. Suddenly, Edward realized that it was a dead body. He quickly stood up and called the police. Then he went to Mrs. Green's front door and knocked. "Hello, Edward. Can I get you a glass of water?" Edwina asked with a smile as she answered the door. Edward shook his head. He pointed over to the bushes and said, "There's a dead man in your bushes." "Oh dear. Again?" Edwina asked as she put her hand to her face. Edward gave Edwina a confused look and said, "This has happened before?" Edwina nodded. She took a deep breath and sighed. "My husband Hubert butt heads with the mob about a year ago, and ever since then they keep dumping their hits here in our yard about once a month. We usually find them before you get here." Edward nodded and said, I see." The police arrived within 10 minutes. Edward showed them where the man's body was while one of the police sergeants talked to Edwina. "Ma'am, we are going to have to start issuing you tickets if we have to keep coming here to pick up bodies." "Tickets?" "Yeah," the brown-haired, brown-eyed 32-year-old officer said, "for littering." "Well, send the ticket to the mob then, since they are the ones that keep dumping bodies here." Sergeant Bob Lewis scratched his head and said, "The mob?" Edwina nodded her head and said dryly, "The mob." Sergeant Lewis nodded and said, "Okay, but really, Mrs. Green, you and your husband should think of dumping the bodies into the river or something and not your yard." Edwina laughed. "I'm so sorry, Sergeant. I didn't mean to infer that my husband and I were in the mob. What I meant was that the mob likes to use our front yard as a dumping ground ever since my husband upset them." Sergeant Lewis nodded. "Well, I guess that's better than you or your husband being knocked off and left in your front yard." Edwina smiled and said, "Yes, it is." She closed her eyes for a moment and then reopened them. "You aren't going to give us a ticket now that you know that we aren't with the mob, are you?" she asked. "Nah," Sergeant Lewis said. "If the mob thinks that this is a good thing to do, who am I to ticket you and your husband for it? But next time, please call the trash company instead of us."